Ladies and gentlemen, I once considered that the implementation of the totally flawed and ill-conceived Domestic Abuse Act of 2021, with spurious allegations of domestic abuse and coercive control being easily used to manipulate the family court, was one of the biggest threats and challenges family court service users face. However, it appears that I may have been very wrong indeed, as in this vlog I explore and potentially expose another nightmare scenario that could be infiltrating our family courts: the hidden threat and indoctrination of the simply mad woke transgender identity ideology, and where I ask the question, is Cafcass promoting gender identity pronouns and ideology onto your children, and their links to Stonewall, which many now consider to be an extreme and aggressive trans political lobbying group? But before I dive into this emerging dark hellhole of insanity, I really must, yes I must, run my excellent introduction. I am Philip Kedge, a retired police chief inspector, the director of the amazing Mckenzie Friend UK network and fearless family court vlogger. In all my vlogs, my views and opinions are entirely my own. If you would like to contact me on any aspect of your family court matters, then please visit www.contactphil.co.uk. Now, my alarm bells started ringing, perhaps louder than they have ever rang before, when I started researching Cafcass with respect to gender identity ideology in children. And I started off with their Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy 2022 to 25. So let's start off by looking at this. Under the heading, our equality, diversity and inclusion stakeholders and initiatives, it lists the Family Justice Young People's Board. Now, I need to read this paragraph in full. The Family Justice Young People's Board, the FJYPB, is a group of over 50 children and young people aged between 7 and 25 years old from a wide range of backgrounds. They have either had direct experience of the family justice system or have an interest in children's rights and the family courts. The children and young people participate in meetings, including board meetings, projects and initiatives in partnership with Cafcass, to ensure all of our work remains child-centred and child-inclusive. They share our overarching aim to put children and young people first in the family courts. Let me repeat that sentence and keep this in mind. They participate in meetings, including board meetings and projects and initiatives with Cafcass to ensure all of our work remains child-centred and child-inclusive. So, Cafcass aren't hiding that. It is not to help or make suggestions or recommendations. It is to ensure that Cafcass remains child-centred and inclusive. That is pretty strong language, indicating that Cafcass is compliant towards this group and accept this group as a group that monitors Cafcass and perhaps even holds them to account. Well, that's interesting and opens up all sorts of questions. So let's now put some more pieces together. On the 16th of February 2022, Cafcass published on their website the advice from this Family Justice Young People's Board. This appears to be the advice to ensure that the work of Cafcass remains child-centred and inclusive. Let's take a look, and you may need a stiff drink in hand as we take a look at this one. So, this is what's on the Cafcass website. I'm going to break it down by picking out some key sentences, starting with this one. Professionals should always assure the young person that their sexual orientation and/or gender identity will be kept private and won't be shared without consent. So, the gender identity discussed with a child won't be shared with a parent without consent. The mad gender identity ideology is straight away clearly on the table. Some young people may receive a lack of support from family, friends and services, which can make coming out a very isolating experience. So, there is a presumption that parents not supporting the false religious cult ideology of gender identity in their children are not supportive parents. Oh my God, can you imagine where that may lead when it comes to the power that Cafcass yields in relation to your children? On to the next one. To reduce this, professionals should never make assumptions about a person's identity, whether that be gender or sexuality, or based on any aspect of their looks or personality. What the hell? So that advice to Cafcass that ensures that the work of Cafcass remains child-centred and inclusive is that when parents complete their C100 application, completing the relevant box with the names and genders as male or female, Cafcass advisors must ignore this parental position and not assume that it relates to the identity of the child. Now, this next one is a total shocker. When first meeting with a child or young person, a professional should start by asking them what their preferred name and pronouns are. Here we go, folks, the full-on indoctrination and child grooming of the gender identity ideology. And let me emphasise, it states with a child or young person, a child, your children, folks, that could be as young as 4 or 5 years of age. What the fuck? Are you happy with that? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the cult ideology that promotes and indoctrinates false beliefs into young children, that a man can be a woman, that a woman can be a man, that a woman can have a penis and a man can have a vagina. An illogical false ideology that supports children, your children, to declare themselves as gender neutral, non-binary or gender fluid. This is the dangerous woke ideology and professional guidance of the Family Justice Young People's Board, who are represented on Cafcass board meetings, and who Cafcass themselves state in black and white in their equality and inclusion strategy that this group ensures that the work of Cafcass remains child-centred and child-inclusive. So, the serious question to be asked is this. Is this indoctrination and grooming of children being fully supported and accepted by Cafcass behind your backs as parents, without your permission or knowledge? If they do support it and are even practicing it, that in my mind is utterly wrong and totally unacceptable. We need to let that sink in for a moment, to consider what may be happening when you leave your children in the hands of a Cafcass family court advisor, when they visit your children at school to speak to them. I fear what might very well be happening is the affirmation of the transgender identity ideology onto your children, and in my opinion that is child grooming and child abuse. What I say to Cafcass is this: don't place your grubby little hands with this moronic, progressive, politicised ideology onto children. I wonder how far away we are from a dystopian nightmare where Cafcass will consider parents who do not support the indoctrinated gender ideology cult expressed by a child as a safeguarding concern and risk of harm, being unable to meet the emotional, psychological and physical needs of the child. Perhaps that's coming in the very near future, or has it already arrived behind closed doors? But how about this for the icing on the cake? Cafcass openly and proudly embrace themselves as a Stonewall diversity champion. Stonewall, which is now widely viewed as an extremist trans political lobby group. Stonewall, which is aggressively promoting the trans rights agenda, leading to the utter madness of the invasion of men self-identifying as women into women's spaces such as toilets, changing rooms, women's refuges, and male rapists into women's prisons. The mad ideology that is promoting the acceptance of men self-declaring as women into women's sports, critically undermining both safety and fairness. The mad ideology that leads to dystopian laws emerging in some countries that makes it unlawful for a parent not to affirm the gender identity of their children. The mad ideology that is leading to the unravelling of not only women's rights, but also on the meaning itself of womanhood and the definition of a woman. The mad ideology that is being indoctrinated into children by schools, corporations and institutions. The mad ideology that is resulting throughout many countries in the medical sterilisation and genital mutilation of children. With Stonewall at the centre of the toxic trans rights and gender identity ideology, where Cafcass themselves loudly and proudly declare themselves as a Stonewall diversity champion. I will leave it to you to start connecting the dots. Is it time to be afraid? To be very afraid. Now, for my full transparency, if you are watching this on YouTube, I have put the links to the references that I have made in this vlog. That only leaves me now to invite you to contact me at contactphil.co.uk if you would like a one-to-one case review with myself on any aspect of your child arrangements case. Or if you would like me to find you an independent Mckenzie friend, or if you would like to become a Mckenzie friend. Until next time, stay strong. You're going to need to.